Good morning, Bucknutters. I really hope you can hear me. It's Thursday, December 12th, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and change. It would be great if someone in the chat could let us know they could hear us. On Tuesday's show, it took us 4 tries. I thought I was technically deficient. As it turns out, it wasn't me. It was the program. The 4th try was a charm. We got it going. Hopefully today you can hear me now. Got Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter coming up. Wonderful, loud and clear. Asian Posh, Derek Douillard, and Jermaine. Thank you. Thank you very much. Glad you guys were here on time. Glad we got started close to on time, and we can now just kick back and talk some Buckeyes. We can also talk Mando, whole body deodorant. And I can tell you this, by the 3rd try on Tuesday, I was pitting out like a mug and was thankful that Mando was a sponsor of the show. Again, whole body deodorant, fantastic. And we have a great deal for you guys so you can check it out yourselves. It was developed by a doctor and gives you 72-hour odor control, although I have re-upped. If you have been using the same deodorant for several years like I was until I discovered Mando, it might be time for you to try something new and better. That's where Mando comes in. Their starter pack gets you going, and it's a special offer for listeners. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. It would not be a show if we didn't have some technical difficulties. So you'll see the Dean, those of you playing along at home and watching can see the Dean's got a more vertical vibe going today. They can hear us, people. So we're good. Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter are here. We're going to start with Bill because the transfer portal, Bill, has been quite interesting. Yesterday, a guy hopped on there who fit the mold. Hindsight being 2020, not necessarily, but to me, Davison Igbinosun was the marquee template mold transfer. You got a guy who started in a major conference, was highly recruited, played great high school football, has shown he can play, was either all conference or close, and has at least a year of eligibility, some 2. The guy who fits that is Mansour Delane, cornerback from Virginia Tech. If you recognize the last name, his brother Fahim will be a freshman at Ohio State. I think Delane can play both spots. He was 3rd team All-ACC. He was the only defensive back at Virginia Tech to get any postseason accreditation, so you know he was their best defensive back. I like that idea too. Bill, I'm just starting with Mansour Delane. Could you bring up the other guys you have brought us into? In fact, there's one guy named Isaiah World who is as big as the world that you might want to get to after that.
Yeah. Mansour Delane, as you mentioned, is the older brother of Fahim Delane, the safety that has signed with Ohio State, that is an early graduate, so he will be here in early January to start his career. He's a safety that Ohio State likes a lot, and big things are thought to happen eventually at Ohio State from Fahim Delane. Obviously Ohio State will be losing Lathan Ransom, but if all goes according to plan, Caleb Downs will be back, and he's the best safety in the country. Ohio State, will be has been looking for a safety in the portal. One that we've talked about some is Dylan Feineman. He is from Purdue. Ohio State likes him a lot. He had a really good season this year for Purdue, even though Purdue was not really good. But he is high on Ohio State's list for sure. Mansour Delane is a guy, as you mentioned, Dan, can play safety or corner. He played more corner this season, and he and Dorian Strong, they formed a really good corner duo for Virginia Tech. But some feel that Mansour Delane projects more as a safety at the NFL level. But he is a guy that Ohio State's interested in as well. And then Isaiah World is an offensive lineman, an offensive tackle. And he is a tackle. He is 6'8", 310 plus pounds, and that is a tackle. He is from Nevada. He has had 2 good seasons for Nevada. He's been honorable mention All Mountain West the last 2 seasons. He's kind of developed at a gradual pace each season to the point now that he is a Power 4 guy that at one point it looked like Kentucky was going to get his commitment, but Ohio State has stepped up. And now, as I put on our site last night, I would consider Ohio State to be the school that is in the best spot right now, and he would fill a huge void for Ohio State. Again, a 6'8", 310-pound tackle that keeps getting better and better, and he's not as big as Josh Simmons, obviously, but kind of along the same mold. Not from a major college, but from a school, a guy that's developed that could be the answer for Ohio State at one of their tackle spots.
So I did a little research on Isaiah World, and he played at Nevada, which did not have a great season. If you look at the postseason awards, one Nevada player got first or second team all conference, and it was a defensive back on the first team. World was honorable mention. He was the only offensive lineman named, so he was their best offensive lineman. It's very interesting that Mike asked the question I figured everyone was going to ask. Is 2 years of Mountain West play better than 2 years developing at Ohio State? And then I thought to myself, I was going to make a point about Josh Simmons, but Brass Tacks beat me to the punch. I was trying not to interrupt Bill. That's sometimes why I interrupt, because I want to be right. Brass Tacks could have said the same thing about where Josh Simmons played before Ohio State, Mike. And I agree with that. I do think 6'8", 315. Mark, what do you think about the idea of adding bodies and throwing bodies at the problem rather than going after? I don't think there's any guarantee Isaiah World's better than someone on the roster, given his pedigree, but your thoughts on the approach?
Before I was ejected from the podcast on Tuesday, I was going to use that same word you said, bodies. Not just one, not just two, but get as many of them as you can, and throw some at the wall. And I think with the Mariotti weight room and putting there, plus the development at Ohio State and the competition every day at practice, you're kind of alluding to that with, the competition in other conferences might not be as good as an Ohio State practice on a daily basis. That's a debatable topic. I like getting as many as you can. And we saw why this year. We brought in 2. They plug and play. McLaughlin and the last year Simmons, they filled the holes. And then all of a sudden, poof, they're gone. And that's the nature of the sport at any position. I wouldn't give this advice just O-line, but you want to be a little greed is good. Let's take Judkins and Henderson. Seems counterintuitive. They're going to be unhappy. They're not going to like each other. They're going to clash heads. No, that is the opposite of what is going on. And I think we have to be greedy in the portal, be greedy in recruiting, especially at the positions we feel we need to get better at. And offensive line right now, after taking a few hits, we need some guys.
I would say if we've learned one thing about this season, depth along the offensive line is vital. Anyone who's turning away competent offensive linemen, guys who could even play 3 or 4 possessions a game for us right now, I would not do that. And I really think, too, keep in mind, we are, and I keep saying this, the one thing I think in college football that's not being maybe publicized enough is how much things are going to change over the next month to 6 weeks with this playoff. We've never been through this before. The idea of look at what Ohio State would have to do to win the national championship. I mean, look at the gauntlet. They'd have to beat, I believe, in order, Oregon, most likely Texas, bing bang, and probably finish with Georgia. Who knows? They'd meet in the semis. I'd have to go back and it's a gauntlet. So depth is going to get more and more important as we go further here. So if you don't think we need depth now after we've lost half our offensive line, we will. Mark, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm good.
All right, don't forget Tennessee to begin with.
Bill, how could I forget Tennessee to begin with? I did forget. There you go, Butch. You know what we're up to. Ron Greenbaum also agrees. I'll say it the other day. I'll say it again. Bodies can't be worse than what we have. I don't know about all that, but very, very important. All right.
I can get back real quick. When Ohio State took him out of the portal, he was not a guy that every school in the country, every big school in the country was going after in the portal. Ohio State was smart to go after him, and I look at Isaiah World a little bit like that. He's not the biggest name in the portal, but they've done it both ways. Josh Simmons wasn't the biggest name in the portal. On the other hand, Seth McLaughlin was somewhat of I would call him certainly a proven starter at Alabama, although he had some snapping issues his last year there, but he was pretty proven. He was a multi-year starter at Alabama. So they've done it both ways, and they're doing it both ways again this year. The guy that they love, Josh Thompson, the offensive lineman at Northwestern, who's making an official visit to Ohio State this weekend. And he is absolutely a proven guy. He proved himself at Northwestern and had a really, really, really good season this past season for the Wildcats. So they're doing it both with the proven guys and maybe the guys that are at a notch below that are not quite as proven.
Yeah, it's interesting. We've given, and rightfully so at some point, Justin Fry he's taken some shots, obviously Ohio State's offensive line coach. The things that if I were making an argument in the pro Justin Fry side of things, he uses California ties to go out there and get a right tackle from San Diego State, like Bill said, that no one was talking about. Brought him in. He was developed as a left tackle. And yes, he did suffer a terrible knee injury at Austin Stadium, but there's some people who think Josh Simmons is the best left tackle in the NFL draft coming up, and that he still will be picked in the first round. I'm not saying they could redo the feat with Isaiah World, but I do imagine when Isaiah World is out there considering transfer options, that would certainly be appealing. The proof that they can get him to where he wants to be and go at that. I'm going to tease you a little bit right now, but we are going to finish the show with a look at our next possible love affair with a offensive lineman. We did this with Brandon Baker. We did this with David Sanders. Pretty productive or not. And we're going to do that again with a gentleman named Jackson Cantwell, the number one offensive lineman in the class of 2026. But I'm going to read another ad here, and I would tell you, if you have any more questions for us, be it on the portal, be it on recruiting, be it on Tennessee, we will take those now, and we will go from there. But I got to tell you about Prize Picks. You would have won money if you'd have played with us earlier this week. I love daily fantasy, and Prize Picks is America's number one daily fantasy sports app. It's the best place to get real money sports action, and they have made more daily fantasy sports accessible to everybody. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 200 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's number one daily fantasy sports app. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they've given away $30+ million in rewards coming up and more in Picksmas. Download the app today at Prize Picks and use code Bucknuts to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Get that again. Download the app today and use the code Bucknuts. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. If you're like someone in my family who is told they can do this but never ask for money, they take that free money and keep turning it over to the point where they have a little thing going. But I digress. Prize Picks, run your game. All right. Let's see here. Let's talk about Chris Madigan. Bill, Chris Madigan asks, thoughts on the tackle in the portal from Bowling Green State University? And I mentioned State University there to give you a minute to look it up if you didn't know who it is already. Can you tell us who that is and what your thoughts on him are?
Well, he is as you mentioned, a tackle at Bowling Green. And
his name?
Wait, are you talking about? Which are you talking about?
I'm asking the question that's on here. I'm not aware of it. Okay. There's a Bowling. Go ahead.
Is it Ball State or Bowling Green?
You tell me.
Rephrase that then.
I'll pull it up right here. Thoughts on the tackle in the portal from Bowling Green State University. Do you not know who that is? We can check on that one.
Anyone tell me Ohio State is recruiting an offensive tackle from Bowling Green?
Okay.
Ball State was the MAC offensive tackle.
That's Tarantayo? Yeah.
Yep.
I saw that one.
From Versailles High School, which is, on the west side of Ohio.
It is. We've played them here in the mean streets. All right. Yeah, there's some question about Luke Montgomery and if he's disappeared on the depth chart. I would not take, and this is a general statement, you guys can hop in here. I would not take any offensive line maneuvering at this point as a sign of anybody else. I think they are at the point where they are replacing depth. You've had guys transfer out. So I would be very leery of doing 1-for-1, if you know what I'm saying. I don't think it's one guy at the end and one guy has to leave. I don't think we're anywhere near that point here. I think we're lumping the clay together here at some point. Mark, I see you nodding. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think the same theory, like where we said guys, I think I don't know who it's going to be, whether it's going to be Luke Montgomery or Josh Padilla or the Armstrong twins. One of them will pop up and be a dude, the best of that group. And then if you bring in 3 or 4 transfer guys, 1 or 2 of those guys will pop up and be a dude. But I like the idea of taking a bunch because you said we have lost guys. We lost Chrisman, I think, to Kentucky. There were other guys that, didn't quite pan out that you need to maybe recruit over and, bring in some guys. So I don't think you can just go hero ball here and try to bring in one and hope he's the, Band-Aid that plugs what you need. I think depth, and I think it's just a better overall approach. And if you can lure that many top flight guys to the same place, do it. But that's the other problem, we run into is you start bringing in all these 5-stars and all of a sudden they know they're not going to get on the field right away because there's so much competition. So you run that fine line, but let's get up to that red line of having too many 5-stars.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody to Bill's had some technical difficulties. So we'll see if you can sign back on here. I would encourage everybody to go to 24/7 Sports at some point, and there's a drop-down menu, transfer portal, and hit latest transfers. It literally turns over in real time. And let me tell you something. I was refreshing it yesterday, and it'll blow you away. Sometimes I once read for 5 minutes, hit refresh, and 24 guys showed up in there. So go ahead.
I did that exact same thing yesterday for the first time. Got into the portal, and I realized as I scrolled, that was just yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I realized that the whole Marshall team has entered the portal, and that's another side story because every 4th name was Marshall.
Correct.
But it is, and I talked to some coaches because I'm on the road right now, and they said the number this year in the portal is going to double or triple what it was last year. There might be 7,000 kids in that portal. I don't know if that was hyperbole, that number, but it seems like everyone and their mother is testing the waters. And I had a coach tell me this. And I'm not going to say what school. He goes, last year we had 19 kids hit the portal. And he goes, I told them the day they hit the portal, don't come back. He goes, they hit the portal and 9 of them couldn't go anywhere. And he goes, we could have used those 9. And I didn't take them back because I was a hard ass. He goes, this year I have a new rule. You hit the portal, you have till January 1st. And after January 1st, you're now dead to me, but I will give you some time and then I will bring you back if you're there, because all these kids just want to test the water. And I'm going to use the word ignorantly. They don't have landing spots. They don't even have a clue that anybody else even wants them. They are delusional, being told by people that aren't football experts that, oh, you should go in the portal. There's money there. There's someone who's going to want you. And I think that's really juiced up these numbers in the portal. And of course, Ohio State's looking at just the upper tippity top of the tier of people in there, not this mass exodus we're seeing, but there's some portal info for you.
You know, Dan, all the talk about the offensive, I think I'm back, aren't I?
Yeah.
Allegedly.
All the talk about the offensive line, and here's kind of a quick breakdown. Josh Thompson is an absolute guy they would love to add to the program. Could play guard, tackle, but projected as a guard in the NFL, and he is an NFL guy. Absolutely. He would be a fantastic addition to Ohio State's offensive line. I know you're thinking more tackles now, but play a guy like Josh Thompson, even if he's a guard, if you're Ohio State or really almost anybody else, and he is making official visit this weekend. Then you've got Isaiah World. We've talked about, he's kind of the guy that the tackle, that the prototype tackle guy, 6'8", 310 plus. They have also, Ohio State has reached out and been in contact with Luke Baklenko, his agents. He's certainly on the radar screen. He is a Stanford offensive lineman. Gunnar Hansen from Vanderbilt is the guy that is, they have had contact with his people. And then Rotrell Perry from Central Connecticut is on their radar screen as well. We mentioned Tarantayo on their radar screen, but they have not had contact with him as of last night. And a guy that I thought was kind of interesting, but Ohio State has not reached out to him, at least so far, is Braylon Moore, the center at Virginia Tech. So, that's kind of in a nutshell the offensive lineman right now that we know of, led by Josh Thompson and Isaiah World.
There you go, Bill. Very good summary of where we are at offensive line, and I do think that's a very big deal, obviously, in terms of recruiting. Bill, I'm going to ambush you with a question here because Williams Nwaneri, a top 10 defensive lineman in the previous class, committed to, I believe, his native University of Missouri and is in the portal. When I see a guy in the portal who has a super high prep rating from coming out of high school, then I will give him a look. I'm not qualified at this point to go find a guy who was a 77 rating and went to a smaller school and has developed. I would need to get film on said dude, but I'll give you an example. Takario Davis, a defensive back from Arizona, has entered the portal. I'm not saying it has anything to do with Ohio State, but he was a 93 coming out. What do you make of Williams Nwaneri, who's going to be about the highest rated prep type player to get into the portal? Is that a thing where Ohio State will go after him? Are you thrown off by the fact that such a high profile guy would hop in the portal that quickly? Maybe generally and specifically, if you could talk Williams Nwaneri.
He was a guy absolutely recruited when he was in high school. He was one of the top guys coming out in high school. Ohio State offered him a scholarship and absolutely recruited him. Now, having said that, since he has entered the portal, I haven't heard tell me that Ohio State is going after him. I've had nobody say that that's a guy on the radar screen or going after or whatever. Just that I think he's associated immediately when he got in the portal because he was so highly recruited coming out of high school. And he was a guy Ohio State offered a scholarship to and certainly went after. But to this point, I haven't been told that he is a guy that Ohio State is looking strongly at. That could change. It could change this afternoon. I could be told something different. But that's as of yesterday where things stood.
Mark, do you think that's a big deal now? You talked about how a coach told a player to get lost after he entered the portal. I imagine burning bridges now, though, can be dangerous. I mean, Ohio State recruited Williams Nwaneri in high school. He chose Missouri. But you could just keep chatting with the guy off the record. And then when he hits the portal, you're kind of back in the groove for him again. Have you noticed college coaches not wanting to napalm the bridge as much as they may have once wanted to?
This has always been a relationship business. And, places like Youngstown State or the MAC schools will always offer an Ohio State caliber player. And when the kid accepts, you usually get a text from the MAC coach. Congratulations, you're too good for us. But if anything ever happens, you have a friend here. Keep in touch, and I'll be following your career, because this is a business where 2-3 years from now, things seem to come back around. The karma in football where the coach is now, at a different school, and all of a sudden you need him, or a coach is in the NFL and you hook up with them later. This is one of those businesses where you can never truly napalm bridges. It only hurts your future in this business from the player standpoint and from the coach's standpoint. And talent's talent. At some point you got to put that water under the bridge and get the talent on the field, even if your off-field personalities do clash. So, yeah, I think burning bridges is a thing of the past.
Eric Turnbull asked about Mansour Delane. He's going to want to go back and watch this show or listen to it again. We talked about him in depth. We have been all over him since he entered the portal officially yesterday morning. There's some talk about here about how West Virginia has hired Rich Rodriguez again, which is particularly relevant to Ohio State because Brian Hartline interviewed for that job, and I had to hold my breath for 2 days to wait to see that he didn't get it, and I was really running out of air. That would be an adventure. If Brian Hartline leaves, some foundational questions would be asked. All right, we have a treat for you now. We are going. If you don't know who this is, we are going to introduce you to Jackson Cantwell, offensive lineman. Bill, I would hope you could give us a little preview on Jackson Cantwell here, and go from that. I'm getting a vital text here that I need to answer. Anyway.
I did find some info on the offensive tackle for Bowling Green.
Okay,
just reading his draft grade. Some of the drafts have him as a stock player coming out of sophomore year, which means he's a draftable player. They're not really sure where it looks like, but being 6'7" and 305 pounds, 6'6.5", they like his upside and they think of him as a right tackle. So I guess anytime there's a pro level caliber player who's already been deemed that, take him as depth. Now, what's funny about that is there's a lot of pro level tackles that go in the draft every year, but how many of them can actually play for Ohio State? At some point, Ohio State's offensive line should be pretty pro caliber across the board.
Absolutely.
But yeah. But taking another pro caliber player to add into that depth, and Ohio State doesn't do this much, but if you had a swing tackle, I see this in other teams a lot. This is a digression, but the Chargers are doing it now. The Niners did it a bunch. Where's our offensive tackle that goes in at tight end, and our other offensive tackle that comes in at fullback on those, 6th and 7th man when we get down to the goal line and short and one? Do we have depth like that where we can really overpower guys with our offensive lineman depth and use these guys? But that is a digression. And Jim Graham is stealing our comp for the player we're about to watch.
Okay, Taylor Decker is going to be the comp for Jackson Cantwell. That would be a great comp. Bill, before we do this, Jackson Cantwell, can you give us just a quick intro?
Yeah, he's a guy I've talked to on multiple occasions. He is a 6'7" plus, between 6'7" and 6'8", from Nixa, Missouri. Not your biggest hotbed of high school football talent, not the modern day high school, but still, Jackson Cantwell is the number one offensive tackle in the country for the class of 2026. When I talked to him in mid to late July, he had told me that he wanted to visit Ohio State for one of the Buckeye games this season. Unfortunately, that did not happen. He did visit a lot of schools. He's got at least 30 scholarship offers, basically from the who's who of college football. And he's trying to narrow his list down. He has been to all of the schools that he would he's got about 10 schools he is considering for 3 to 5 official visits. Ohio State is one of those 10 schools. It is the Ohio State and Michigan are the only 2 schools from his left list, that is schools he is still considering, that he has not been to yet. So since he didn't get to Ohio State for a game, and since Ohio State and Michigan, he didn't get there for a game either, I don't believe. In fact, I know he didn't. Since he didn't get to those 2 schools and he wants to get that list down to who he's going to make official visits to, he is going to visit both of them this weekend. He is going to visit Ohio State on Saturday and then Michigan on Sunday. And then he will have been to all the schools he is considering for his official visits, and he'll make a decision then on his official visits. So this weekend's going to tell the tale if Ohio State gets an official visit out of Jackson Cantwell or not. He does speak highly of Justin Fry. He has been recruited for quite some time by Justin Fry. They have a good relationship. So if things go well this weekend, Ohio State very well could get on that short list of official visits.
See, Frederick is trying to steal my thunder here. Cantwell seems like another ghost we're chasing, i.e. Baker and Sanders. All right, let us just do ghost chasing for a while. It's fun. Before we do that, Bill, considering I set the premise there, Brandon Baker, David Sanders, and Jackson Cantwell, first time you saw all 3 of them, same vibe? Do you put Cantwell in the mix with those 2? How would you rank those out on first impressions from the dean before they got the paddle?
Yeah, I would. I'd put him in there with those 2. Absolutely. You know, if I had to rank him in order right now, I'd put Sanders at the top. But Sanders is a year older. So, I may say something different at this time next year. Jackson Cantwell is a little bit bigger, at least height-wise, and he's got a lot of potential. Like I said, he's got Ohio State, Alabama, Florida State, Georgia, Penn State, Oklahoma, Tennessee. You name it, they've offered Jackson Cantwell. He should absolutely be in with those other 2 that you mentioned, Dan.
Mika mentions that in this class, he likes Emmanuel Iheanacho slightly better. I will tell you this. The biggest picture on this wall was taken at Emmanuel Iheanacho's high school because my nephew got married there. It is Georgetown Prep. Both my brothers-in-law went there. I don't think that's going to help the recruiting to Ohio State. I'll put a good word in. Can't guarantee anything. All right. Let's take a look at Jackson Cantwell and turn it over to Mark Porter. Mark, the floor is yours. Hold on. I will say, but before I turn it over, I will say the opening graphic says, for those of you listening, 158 pancakes, 0 sacks. Mark, the floor is yours.
Well, I'll talk about him, and you guys have touched on it a lot already. Is he as good as Baker and that type of caliber player? I see him as a totally different player. Baker was really athletic. I think he was 6'4", not as long. This player, like we said in the comments, reminds you of a Taylor Decker. I made Taylor Decker's film 10, 15 years ago, whatever it was. He had 200 pancakes, literally 200 pancakes. His film went for like 17 minutes, and every clip was a pancake. We actually played his film like maybe a year ago when we were talking about some of these linemen. How do they compare? And, David Sanders actually looked better than Taylor Decker in high school. Bill said it. The upside of this kid, I think, might be, and I don't want to go crazy, might be the greatest because he's the longest for the NFL. I mean, his wingspan on this tape, Bill said almost 6'8". I don't doubt it. I mean, he looks like a grizzly bear out there. I mean, he's just bigger than everybody on the field. Pretty technically sound. The one knock on this tape, and I watched it earlier, I'm not sure about the competition.
Right.
And you can't knock guys for the competition because he's doing what he should do to it, which is absolutely humiliating it, dominating it, making it look like men against boys. So he's playing the way he should. You can never tell what's going to happen. I mean, these are some impressive
He
plays.
just ruined someone's football career on that play. Go ahead.
Yeah. Child Services is going to question him after the game for child abuse with stuff like that. But yeah, as an evaluator, you look at this kid and you say, boy, he's not as athletic as some of those other tackles we fell in love with, but he's a different type of player. He has a little bit more of an anchor to him. And boy, his NFL upside just seems like it is a home run. It almost seems like Alt from Notre Dame that went to the Chargers. He looks like
great comp.
Yeah, that type
He's got that basketball height.
Yeah, he really has a nice package here. I mean, there's some things that you can't buy with that length and whatever. So yeah, here we go again, falling in love with a big time offensive tackle. I don't know how many times we're going to watch this film over the next year, but I think the more you fall in love with this player, the more it's going to hurt if he doesn't go to Ohio State. And full court press, full NIL press here. I think in NIL, some of the easiest players to push some money towards would be linemen, because I think they're a little bit easier to predict sometimes of their greatness. Like, there aren't many other 6'7" human beings in the world, let alone, like there's a lot of 6'1" receivers, and maybe you offer the wrong one that runs a 4.4, because there's a lot of 6'1" receivers that run 4.4. Not too many 6'7" guys running around like this. So I think your miss probability is a little lower on a guy like this.
Yeah. The move
safer money. It's safer money to bet.
Sure. Well, also there's just fewer 6'7", 315 human beings on the earth that can move. They're scarce. They made the movie The Blind Side about this player. This player was created, and the theory behind it is because you needed someone who could block Lawrence Taylor. And it started with the Washington Redskins and Joe Jacoby. And that's really the example they're using there. There just aren't that many 6'6", 300-pound guys that can stay in front of a dude and still block. Now, one issue is, Mark, and you know this, these guys don't go against people of their own ilk very many times at full contact in their life, because they don't exist very often. It's kind of like if you have a 6'9" center on your high school basketball team, or anybody who grew up with that, how many times did he face another 6'9" center in a high school basketball game? So you are projecting. And I do know of a couple specific cases, and I will not use their names, of guys who got to Ohio State, were highly regarded, and in the first drill, the attacking linebacker ran right into him. The lineman went on their butt, and someone turned to the guy and it's like, we're in trouble. Because it's also not just the 6'9" guys you go against. It's the 21-year-old linebacker who's 235 pounds and has been in mixed weight room for 3 years that you got to catch too. No simple task. All right, Bill, you have the weekend off now. What's up with you now that high school football's over? You two are doing what? Sunning yourselves. I see the sun's out today. Bill, your immediate plans for the immediate future to share with the Nutters.
A lot of portal stuff, obviously. As I mentioned, Ohio State is having visitors this weekend. Josh Thompson will visit on Friday, the portal player. Saturday, Jackson Cantwell from the high school, he will visit. So there's going to be visitors at Ohio State this weekend. So predominantly focused on the portal right now, but also there is high school recruiting going on. As we talked about last show, the portal is the main thing right now for Ohio State when it comes to recruiting, because it's a short period. It goes till early January and then it closes. So whatever they have a limited amount of time in this portal period to go. Whereas the class of 2026, obviously, they've got a lot of time on that yet. But they do need to make a good impression if they want to get Jackson Cantwell back for an official visit.
Also, the idea that the portal is open just for the time announced, there are, I believe, Bill, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The new rule is once your team is eliminated from the playoffs, you then have 5 days to announce whether or not you are entering the portal. So what you're going to have here is every weekend you're going to have a set of games and then a rollout of the losing teams. I wouldn't be surprised if message boards start to heat up in the fourth quarter of games where teams know the other team's going to lose, and they start saying, hey, this will happen. Trust me. Hey, that guy can just run that out pattern, keep going, and head to Columbus. But I digress. So this is going to be rolling out until I don't have the date of the national championship game in my hand, but it's 5 days after that. So this is not, as Bill will tell you, he is aiming at a moving target in covering this stuff. It's not like it used to be when it was kind of regimented dates-wise. You're now dealing with kind of a rolling target. So we are lucky we have the dean in there to handle this and accept all the stress, because Mark and I would not be able to hack it.
Yeah.
We appreciate. Go ahead.
You know what else is kind of a little strange? The home playoff game scenario now. With a home playoff game, for instance, I'll give you an example.
Oh, yeah.
Cantwell is coming to visit Ohio State on Saturday. If you fast forwarded that ahead to a week from Saturday, Ohio State is playing in a home playoff game. Jackson Cantwell, he could visit Ohio State that weekend if he wanted, but Ohio State is not allowed to provide him with free tickets to their playoff game. That's against NCAA rules. So
interesting.
He could come and visit Ohio State on that day, but he could not get free tickets from Ohio State to go to that playoff game that night because that's against the rules. On the other hand, he could go to the game because he could buy his own ticket on his own from wherever and go to the game, just not as a visitor, quote, of Ohio State on one of the free tickets. They can't do that. So that's another interesting, I guess, situation that that has changed this year because you have home playoff games.
Bill Baldwin asked, previous question I saw, can a player transfer and play in our playoff games? They cannot. Also, if we take a kid, I heard this too. Could we still now really, really try and go get David Sanders and plop him into a playoff game and flip his commitment? No, I don't think we're going to flip him. And no, current high school seniors cannot enroll early and play in the bowl games. The NCAA.
Could you even imagine?
I was just going to say, yeah.
I mean, Ryan Williams would be like, you know what? I want to keep playing some football. I'm going to go play with these guys for the playoffs.
Think about this. You could be a high school senior and say, you give me $1 million, I'll come play for you in the bowl game. But then I'm going to walk on, and then I want to be immediately eligible again. I'll just come help you win the title. Look, I don't want to put we weren't putting ideas. Thankfully, these are illegal ideas we're putting into people's heads that can't be acted upon. I don't know what to tell you, man. It is tomfoolery and hijinks across the board. We appreciate these guys stopping by, and we'll talk to them later next week. If you are still here, you are a winner in my eyes, and you should reward yourself with Factor meals. You notice how the days are shorter, but your to-do lists aren't? Power through your busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals from breakfast to dinner and anything in between. Factor has easy, nutritious options. Keep you fueled and feeling your best as I lose my breath. Whether you like routine or you enjoy mixing things up, I highly recommend Factor to you guys. The food is high quality. It tastes great. It's never frozen. Head to factormeals.com/Bucknuts50 and use code Bucknuts50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That's code Bucknuts50 at factormeals.com/Bucknuts50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. If you are still watching right now, you are an all-star Buck Nutter. We love you. Have a good one, Nutters of Buck.